Do I think science contradicts the Bible? I think a lot of times when people say science, what they're actually talking about is the theory of evolution. You know, I love science. I love it. Like, since I was little, you know, I'm kind of a nerd with certain things, with information, with reading. You know, even before I got saved, I loved to read about our world and quantum physics. And I read Albert Einstein's biography and a lot of those types of books, and to me it doesn't. What contradicts science is the theory of evolution, you know, and I'm not a scientist, but you could find a lot of really good documentaries on the internet by scientists. You know, you could find books by scientists that are in agreement that the theory of evolution is just not true. You know, there's so many holes in that theory, and that certain scientists are like, look, we can't really fake that this is what really happened, because it's not, you know. Let me give you an example. There's a couple types of evolution. There's evolution within a species. So if a tall man has a baby with a really short woman, they're gonna have a medium-sized baby. That's a type of evolution, and that's true, you know. But there is no proof of evolution from death to life. That means there's no proof that life evolved out of no life, and that actually contradicts science. Because science says life can only come from life. I believe it's called biogenesis. And there is no proof that we evolved from other types of species. You know what I mean? And like I said, I love watching documentaries on science, and I was watching one the other day. And, you know, and I don't know if you've ever heard this saying, it takes more faith to believe that you came from a frog than it takes to believe in a God. You know what I'm saying? And in this documentary about evolution, they were showing this fish, you know, that was 1 billion years old, and they had this animation, and it was where this fish lived, it was really dangerous. There was crocodiles and other fish that were trying to eat that fish. So it said, and this was you know, they had a real big budget for this documentary, and what it said was that eventually the fish decided to push itself up and walk out onto land, where it was less dangerous. And all the scientists were like, yeah, you know, the fish just decided to do that. To me, that sounds retarded. That's not science. You know, so a lot of times we get that twisted. You know, we think that science is just is everything, and it's not. Science is the study of facts that can be proven and then turned into laws. The law of gravity can be proven in China, in Russia, or in the United States. So it became a law. It was a theory at first, and then it became a law. The theory of evolution is still a theory because it hasn't been proven. As a matter of fact, I'll give you the example of, you've all seen that fairy tale where the princess kisses the frog and it turns into a prince, right? That's a fairy tale, right? But some people think that's what really happened. That from a frog became a prince. You know what I'm saying? And the kiss was the time, billions of years or whatever. Now, I think you just have to be really close-minded to believe that, you know. And when you get to studying science, and when you see how DNA works, when you see how complicated everything is, when you see that you can't have cells without DNA, you know, and DNA is a computer program. It's not accidental. It's specific information. Billions of pieces of specific information put in order, and if any of those was off, the whole thing doesn't work. You cannot have information without an intelligence. You know, so now where science is at, you know, the scientists that are, I believe, actual scientists, you know, they say, okay, cool, you know, we're at a level where now we understand cells and the structures of organisms at such a deep level. Evolution didn't do this, but they won't say God did it, so they call it intelligent design. They call it ID. That's the new, like, you know, shorthand for the fact that this couldn't have happened by itself. You know, so there's definitely things in the Bible that, let me put it this way, there's a crossroad that you get to if you're studying science or any type of faith. And the crossroad is this. This either happened on its own, or a God, an intelligence way smarter than us created this, right? So at that crossroad, you got to pick a side eventually. Eventually, all of us got to figure out this is just an accident, random chance. That means your children, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, you could look them in the eye, they're nothing, they're nobody, they're a random chance, whether they live or die, it doesn't matter. If you have an emotion for them, you're just a fool because this is random and it has no meaning. Or there is meaning to this, there's a purpose for you, there's a purpose for everyone on this world, and there's a specific reason we were put here. All of us have to hit that crossroad at some point in our life, you know? And for me, that crossroad from science, from studying science, I believe it proves there is a creator, you know? So once you hit that crossroad, then we could deal with which book is real. Is it only one book? Do all the books lead you to God? Does every road lead to God? Can you just make things up and be like, well, I believe this, and you know, it's still gonna get you to God? That's a whole different crossroad that we could hit in the next segment of this, you know. So I don't believe science and the Bible contradict, because if there is a God, and if he could make all this, if he could make the universe, if you don't think it's kind of miraculous that we're floating on a ball of dirt in the middle of space, but you think it's completely unheard of that God could raise someone from the dead, you know what I'm saying? I think it's just as miraculous that we're alive, that a bunch of cells and atoms vibrating at a certain frequency have life and have the capacity to think. That's pretty miraculous too. And we're floating on a big ball of dirt in the middle of space. That's kind of miraculous, you know? So if there's a God, which I believe there is, and he could do that, I don't see the problem of him raising someone from the dead or doing anything, you know? So, and there's a ton of stuff once I really started getting into the Bible. There's a ton of stuff. The Bible is actually thousands of years ahead of science, saying that God sits above the sphere of the earth. Wow. And people that had the Bible were killing people for saying the earth was round. Read your book. You know what I'm saying? So, that's all I got to say about that.
Chasing money, fame, and women, we program liars, thieves, and cheats from the beginning, so it's nothing to start dumping.